Hey, this is Amazon Jude coming to you from Wyoming, letting you know pretty much what the people up this way in the West are thinking about these days. Um, Let me start out with a couple of things that hit the news. As far as up this way, it seems the Democrats are complaining about a cut to the EPA by 30% in budget for Trump's idea of how to roll back government regulations. Let me adjust this a little better. And we're okay with it. There's a fellow up here. His name was Andy Johnson, and you can find it on my Twitter and my Facebook accounts under EPA over regulations or Amazon Jude or Andy Johnson, Wyoming EPA issues, whatever. EPA blew in, and I think it was 2013 on Andy. He had just built a really nice pond, on his 9 acres in Uinta County, Wyoming. And we didn't really have trouble with EPA issues or anything up here because we have our own DOT like most states do, that and our Army Corps of Engineers and all of that come in and do our own regulations. So the EPA, and not only that, it was an in-state issue. It had nothing to do with over borders or over state lines, and that's one of the big problems with the EPA, is they're going into these little towns and these little counties and stuff, and attacking the residents on water use, land use, trying to over-regulate what you can do with your property or what you can have on your property. And those things are already in place with our state environmental quality agencies and stuff. So I was really glad to see a 30% cut. I think it's a great idea. I think rolling back these boys and stepping on their toes is going to do nothing but help us all out in the long run. These guys, all they care about is their government jobs and government pay and government vacations and government, it's all about me. I mean, I wish I could get a job with the government and only work so many days a year and get paid for all of them, and, take off when I want to go pick up my kid from school and not risk losing my job. The government has just been overblown. Well, anyway, Andy Johnson fought back just like I did, and he won his case last year, in fact, in Wyoming. And he doesn't have, they were trying to fine him $16,000 to $36,000 a day, even though he had the Army Corps of Engineers by Wyoming out there, and they okayed his project. He had the proper permits, he had the proper paperwork, everything. It was just somebody decided to go in there and try to force him to dismantle a pond that was on his own property, that was actually acting like an aquifer for the Platte River water river that is actually pretty dirty, and the water would go into his pond and then be filtered, through his process, and rocks and coal or things that are in the water there. He has fish, he has, whatever. But anyway, it was filtering the water, and all these tests were done. And even the guy that was head up of the EPA here in Wyoming testified in his behalf. So rolling back these regulations on EPA is a must. And that's just one aspect of it. That's just the aspect that I'll cover on the EPA's 30% decrease suggested by President Trump. I didn't even know this meeting had gone on until we started scoping around and just stumbled across a story with Her name is Espinoza, Miss Espinoza. She was an immigrant turned activist for, let me find her, Latinos. Let's see, where is it? Oh my gosh, I'm doing this. Latinos, where's it at? Okay, oh, America First Latinos. Okay, the thing that I loved about this gal is they had done their research. They know that the government is lying to the American people about what this border wall will cost. She had lost a loved one being murdered by an illegal alien a few years ago, and she started this American First Latinos, and it's got another name too. But anyway, she testified in front of the House Committee, Senator Cummings, and this Senator Tristan DeSalvanero. Okay, this DeSalvanero and Cummings both together equal problems in my book. They're both been protect, protect, protect all the Democratic, or all the Democrats waste spending and you know, helping illegals and, you know, free, free, free. They ought to be on the Bernie board is where they should be, or whatever, because they never say who's going to pay for all. Well, actually, they do say we're going to pay for all this free shit for everyone else that are illegals, that don't belong in this country, that are violating the very law by being here. Well, anyway, this Miss Espinoza, she gave a 5-minute speech to the Oversight and Government Reform Committee that Cummins and this DeSalvanero was on, and I couldn't believe it. This senator was just appalling. He seems to think that President Trump, after being a builder for, God, since he was, what, 27 years old, is going to buy the idea that the cost on this wall is $100 and something billion, when really those guys are getting bids on it right now. We're going to know the real figures here pretty soon. And this Espinoza gal, her little study group, or, you know, whatever you guys want to call them, they came up with a cost of about $14 to $15 billion to build the wall. And the funny thing about these Senate oversights is they use their own government people to do estimates on what any given project will be. So naturally it's going to be inflated. That's one of the biggest problems with government, is they get to be in charge of their own stuff. They're not even looking to outside sourcing or bidding or contracting before they go in and say, well, our guys say that it's you know, going to be $170 billion to build the wall. And these guys went through with it. They did it. I mean, they came up with their own money. They hired an outside source to figure out, you know, square inch concrete wall, 1,000 miles long, and they came up with $15 billion. Okay, that's the difference. But the government will go, well, our guys are, you know, our CBC or whatever they call themselves, the commission that seems to think that, you know, they know all about every little inch of business and bidding and contracts and, you know, law and all of that is expenditures. They don't know squat. They haven't been on target in about 30 years. If they say $8 billion, they'll tell the American public it's $30 billion. Okay, that's what it is. It's a corrupt, crooked organization within our government. Anyway, so this Espinoza goes up and she tells them the story about how many people have been killed by these illegal aliens. And she's speaking in favor of the wall. Okay, there is millions of Mexicans that are here legally, that went through the ranks, that did the hoop jumping, that are here legally, and they want the wall. Why doesn't Congress want the wall? We spent $15 billion on Michelle Obama's school lunch program, but we can't come up with $14 billion to build the wall to protect America from drug trade, rape trees, coyotes. You know what coyotes are, right? They get $8,000 a piece for each one of these guys. They lock them up in some trailer and leave them in the desert to die. But the Democrats seem to be okay with that. And they seem to be okay with these ranchers and along the border there finding trees with women's underwear in them and little kids' shoes, where these drug cartels and these coyotes have raped these women, killed their children, and left their panties hanging on a tree. You won't hear that in mainstream media either. So it's important that we keep pushing for our border wall, guys. You know, the Democrats make a lot of money. And if there's nothing I've never learned in all of my days of studying about our government, the CIA and Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, you know, going all the way back to Alabama, they love that drug money. And there's no reason to think that there aren't at least a half a dozen or not more of our Congress and Senate involved in drug money, and that's why they push for open borders. So with that, I'll leave this section going and move on to the next. Sanctuary cities. With the judges that are being called upon, which is the Ninth Circuit Court, and it has, what, 65 million that try to get into that court at any given time from the smaller courts. It's too big of an area. It's a very liberal court. It's been overturned over 80% of the time, and there is a need for a 12th Circuit Court. The reason I say this, too, for a second, is it's called judge shopping, and that's what the Democrats and some Republicans do when they really, really want a bill to pass and be legal or constitutional. They'll seek out these liberal judges. I mean, why in Minnesota would you file a court case for the United States on immigration ban or illegal bans or border walls or ban on Muslims coming into the country? Because that's the courts that the last president-elect or the last president that had power to appointed judges that saw his view. So I look for our media to bash and clash on Trump for electing and appointing judges in, I think, at least 100 offices that has his point of view. It simply would be a boondoggle for anyone to believe that. He's going to appoint constitutional judges no matter what court he appoints them to. And this was another reason we elected President Trump, is because we knew his bias also is wielded with temperance and with heart. So he gets to see more of a side of an issue than just these liberal progressives that want everything their way, total power, total control. They try to stack the deck in their favor at every turn. So the talk is that he's going to overturn a lot of stuff that the Democrats are just simply going to have their heads explode over. But it's okay. We need to overturn and change some of these laws that have been placed upon us for the last 22 years. I mean, I can go back to when we signed on in Rio de Janeiro for the New World Order. And this is where I'm supposed to get out my 10 at, but I'm not going to, because this is history and it's written just as I'm trying to tell it to you. It's fact. I've done enough research on any subject that I talk about to know that what I'm saying is absolutely true. And I hope with any new appointments to our Supreme Court, because there's talk that Judge Kennedy's going to step down. I look for Ruth Boehner or Ruth to tip over like a cow too at some point. So he'll get to appoint 3 more, or at least 2 more in his presidency. And that's good. That's good for our Constitution. That's good to take us back to our original founders, fathers' ideas on what America is. And it's going to blow a big asshole in any court cases that the liberals try to push through the government anymore. So we're going to have control for the next 40 years. And it couldn't come at a better time. Our kids are being brainwashed in school by liberal teachers failing to teach Civics 101, what the government is. Do you remember the song when you were a kid? And it was called I'm a Bill, and it was by the Schoolhouse Rock. The kids that are coming out of college never saw that. They have never studied history to the point that they know what happened to break us away from the British regime and design and contour our own country. So it's going to be a game changer here. And a lot of things that Trump is doing is a game changer. Now, I would only issue one warning to our Republicans, and that is, it's time, boys. You've been saying you're leaders. You get all over the circuit out there, and you tell all these people who vote for you, I'm a natural born leader, and I know how to solve this and that. Where are you? Why aren't we seeing bills written every day going through Senate instead of talking and listening to some idiot on the Senate floor talk about congratulating a football star in Indiana? Wasted time. And that seems to be the case for both the Democrats and the Republican. You guys waste a lot of time. I mean, if I worked as hard as you guys did and collected over $100,000 a year, I sure as shit wouldn't be sitting here on YouTube video trying to explain to the American public we're being ripped off at every turn. So, Republicans, you guys better get your poop in a group. The president's been working circles around you. He's done everything he could possibly do as a president to give you incentive to write new bills, to change bad laws, to roll back regulations. Do your jobs.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Jack Frost